Someone asked what would I do with these? I'm not sure yet, but let's get started. Here is the first of my two projects. I made this one for my mother. I ended up using the thankful sign as a base on this one, and so I played off of those colors. She wanted one that was lighter, and so the new velvet pumpkins at Dollar Tree worked perfectly for this, along with a bunch of lamb's ear that I ended up getting from Hobby Lobby earlier in the season. I accented it with a few of the cotton, raw cotton stems that I already had in my stash, and just a couple of pops of darker color. I think they're daisy-like flowers. I'm not exactly sure. But I love how it turned out. I think it will do really well in her house, and where she plans on sitting it, you will be able to read the thankful sign perfectly. I put my signature bow on top with some black and white striped ribbon to pick up the black that's in the thankful and in the sides of the sign, which is buffalo check. So now let's move on to project number 2. Here is my second project, and I made this one for our house here. It is in the traditional fall colors. As most of you know, we are here in Michigan, and I love when it is the change of seasons from summer to fall and all of the leaves on the trees are changing colors, and so I like to bring that into my home in the fall season. I absolutely love how the ribbon that Dollar Tree carries with the maple leaves went so well with the LED candle. All of this can be made completely from Dollar Tree. I use the gather signs as you guys saw on the bottom, and I am not concerned that you cannot read that it says gather, because I literally purchased those in order to paint over them and use them in a different project. But I was really happy the colors really go well with this. Now the pumpkins in here that are willow wreath I got at Hobby Lobby a couple of years ago, and the ribbon that's on the top also came from Hobby Lobby that was already put together on a different project that I took off like 4 years ago, and so I'm not sure you can get that same ribbon this year, but I'm sure they have something like it. So Dollar Tree has some beautiful ribbon. They have a really nice plaid that would go with something like this right now. Also, the little wreath that I put in the bottom came from Michael's several years ago on clearance. However, all the leaves that are underneath that I tucked in, and I'm not sure I actually showed that on this project, came from the Dollar Tree along with the berries and the sparkly leaves at the top. I love how this turned out, and I will be displaying it probably in my living room this fall season. A lot of people said they only picked up one of these, and they asked if I could make something with just one of these. Okay, let's get started. Okay, here where you're going to get to your last bead to put on, what you're going to do is then cover the end with some hot glue. And then slide your bead on. Be very careful not to burn yourself with the glue. And push it down. Then you're going to take and place hot glue in the end of that last bead, and then glue it back to the frame. Be careful so you don't burn yourself. Like that. is my final project, and I have to say I am absolutely in love with it. I made this for our front porch. We have a covered front porch, and this is the wreath that I'm going to be hanging on our front door on the outside of our security screen. It is hanging here inside my house right now because lighting, as you can see, is pretty bad everywhere. But I wanted to be able to get the best picture for you guys so you could see exactly how it turned out. I am in love with the wood bead detail that I decided to add to this wreath. It was very easy to do. As you saw, I used a wire cutter that actually came from the Dollar Tree and just snipped them off at the top. It doesn't take long. You do need to turn it back and forth and to wear it down a little, and then you can just break it off and add the beads to it. And then I suggest, if you're going to be putting this anywhere but indoors, to use some E6000 or Gorilla Glue along with hot glue to secure it back on. I am going to be putting this on my front porch, and so I did secure it with a little Gorilla Glue on the actual part that I cut off, and it is very, very secure. I was inspired to use these beads by my sister Chrissy, who has her own YouTube channel that is now called Make It With Chrissy, and in her channel art you can see the wood bead wreath that she did, and so I thought it would work perfectly on this, and I do love how it turned out. Those beads came from Michael's store. They are $3.99 a pack. However, you can use a coupon for them, and I ended up using the size that keeps 34 beads in the pack, and I used 4 packs in order to do this. I actually went to the store to get the much bigger beads. However, my store was out of them, so I settled for these, and I actually like this size better. All of the ribbon on this also came from Michael's. They have it right now for 40% off. And so each one of these ribbons, the thankful one, the stripe one, and the pumpkin one, ended up costing me $2.40 for a roll that has 12 feet on it. And I am in love with the thankful one. I am actually going to go back to the store to try to get another one, but my store only had the one, and I was really glad that I could get it. Also, the berries and the little leaves with the pine cone came from Michael's as well. The wreath form and the ribbon that's on the back with the maple leaves came from the Dollar Tree. I really wanted to make a wreath that I could keep and use year after year in different spots of my house. And so I wanted this one to be really, really special. Not that you cannot make this completely from Dollar Tree, but once I saw the thankful ribbon, and I had coupons and my mother and my granddaughter with me at Michael's, I kind of just ran wild with this color scheme and decided to do it all from Michael's products. Now, this can be customized any kind of way you want. If you're not into traditional Thanksgiving or fall colors, then you can do this with buffalo check on the back, like black and white, and still the beads on the front. You could use the actually gray and white kind of buffalo check baby blanket that they have at Dollar Tree to put on the back of this, and it would still work out real well. Dollar Tree also carries little beads. They come in different sizes in a pack, and you could mix those instead of using the wood beads from Michael's, and you can do this whole project from Dollar Tree because they have pine cones, they have berries, they also have leaves, and they have some beautiful ribbons right now, including the one that's on the back. The thing we're going to do is we're actually going to reshape this pumpkin. It is too wide for me, and I need it to be narrower, and it can be a little bit taller for what I want to use it for. So in order to do that, let's first remove the tag. I will show you guys the tag because so many people keep asking for it. You cannot order these online anymore, and I have a shadow. They are out of stock on the website, but here's the tag just in case. So what we're going to do is we're going to reshape this. I need it to be narrower, so I'm just going to pull it here, pull it on the side, and then push the sides in. It's wire, it'll move, it'll bend. So here it is. It is now skinnier and taller. all I did was stretch it, as you guys saw. Be careful because I did knock one of these loose. This one right here, I did glue it back just by pulling and tugging on it. One of them wasn't anchored down real well. So here is the original one. It is bigger. It is wider, actually. It's not bigger. It's wider and it's shorter. The best way to show you that is to put this one over. And you can see, look at, I have a big gap over here, just how I set it on here. Like if I set it over more. I have a gap on this side, I have a gap on that side. And if I push this up, this one's a lot taller. So this is what we want. We want the better shaped one that's narrower for this project. You don't have to do this. If you don't mind it being wider, then okay. So I got this cable knit sweater at the thrift store. I already cut it to see if this would work, and it will. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to lay it down and place my pumpkin on it. And I want to use quite a bit of this sweater, so I'm going to make sure I push it up to as far as I can get it. And I'm going to cut it out to the back of the pumpkin. And then I'm going to want to cut out another section, which we're going to use this bottom section here for a different part. So let's do that. Let's just cut this off to start with to make it easier, and then we will cut out the back of the pumpkin. Okay, next I'm going to glue this down to the back of the sweater. And I'm going to do it this direction and not turn it over because I want to keep an eye on how the cable knit actually sits. Now we're going to let that dry and make sure that it's on there really well. And then we're going to flip it over and do it the other way. And we're going to do it carefully because we do care what most of this looks like. Okay, now for the sides, because the bottom is glued on top because we don't really care. We weren't going to worry about it. But for the sides and the top, we are going to glue the top of the sweater over the bottom and around, okay? Like this. So what you're gonna do is put it like this and put glue on. I started this, but my camera wasn't filming, so I want to make sure you guys understand this. And then loop it from the underside over. This one's glued over this way. You're going to pull the sweater underneath this bar so you can see it and loop it over. And be really careful because it's hot. I have nails. I'm used to this. I have asbestos hands. So my last DIY, I did burn my finger. But it had chicken wire. You can use your scissors as you see I'm using. And then it looks like that along the edge. The bottom we didn't care about, the top we care about. I didn't do this yet because I want to make sure I could pull this as far as I needed to pull it. And we're going to do that all the way around. Now when you get to one of the wires that's going to be in your way, I simply just kind of went around it, but if it doesn't let you because your sweater's stiffer or something, then you're going to need to put a little cut in there. Alright, so this is what you're going to have, and yes, the top looks wonky. Not perfect. You don't have to be perfect up there, just like the sides and the bottom here are not perfect. So now we're going to take this piece that we had left over that we saved, and I like that it has a clean edge so it lets me see better. We're going to be covering up the edge, so don't worry about that if yours does not have a clean edge like that. And we're going to be placing it across like this. And I'm just going to eyeball it. I'm not going to pin it. I'm not going to mark it with anything. I'm just going to eyeball it. You guys can pin it or whatever, but I'm just going to sit it here and say, yep, I want it about yay high. Not halfway up, a little less than halfway up, because we also are going to be putting something else across here with it, and I think it will work out fine just putting it about a third of the way up, maybe a little bit more. Okay, and here's what that looks like. So here that is. It's all done. It's not tacked down in the front at all. So I'm going to leave that until we do a couple more steps. That way I can make sure that it sits where it's supposed to sit. So that's done. Next, I have this shutter. If you saw my Dollar Tree and Target haul that I did not too long ago, I picked up several of these from Target's Bullseye Playground. They are regularly $5. It has a hook on the top to hang it, and we will be hanging this. Now, initially I was just going to hang this and then hang the pumpkin in front of it, but now I've changed my mind and I am going to actually glue the pumpkin to the shutter. So I want to line up the ribbon on the pumpkin to make sure that it's going to look like it hangs evenly on the shutter. Next, I'm going to take some of this jute twine that I have, and I'm going to go ahead and cover the handle to make it look more like a pumpkin stem. Okay, so how I did this, very simple. It's like tying your shoes. You're going to take and you're going to loop this up through the bottom, and you're going to go over one and then under one, and loop it up from the bottom here, and then go over the other section, then under, and loop back up and go over again. Okay, this is what that looks like. I simply went over and under and over and under so it crisscrossed in the middle. You really can't even tell that, but it kept it on there nice and tight. And then I did loops all the way around, in and out around the top part, and just finished it off in the last loop. So now this is what we have. All of these are glued down. All of this is ready to go. is my final project, and you guys already know what I'm gonna say. I'm in love with it. I think it turned out so stinking cute. So first of all, let me tell you this. The bear, the sunflower, and all of the picks that are on this are just simply sitting on it. None of it is glued down. The sunflower is on a stem and I just stuck it down in there, and all of the picks are either stuck behind the sunflower just sitting there, or stuck into where the stem is and behind it, and they're just sitting there. They're not glued down. The little bear is sitting on some floral foam that is covered with the excess sweater that I had left over from making this pumpkin. That's why the sunflower and the pick on the side that the sunflower is sitting there nicely, because they're just stuck into the fabric. I have no plans on gluing it down. No one's gonna mess with this, and so just as long as it sits there like that, I'm not gonna worry about it. The bear won't slide or anything because one of his arms is behind the little wire to the pumpkin, and so that's no big deal. Now the sweater weather sign, I hot glued down to where the wire is. I know I was missing that footage because my camera shut off and I didn't see it, but I did show you guys that, you know, I used a hot glue gun with it. Then the ribbon that goes all the way across and the pumpkin form are glued to the shutter just where the ribbon connects to the shutter, if that makes sense. I didn't glue any of the sweater down because if I want to take this off, that will probably fray and pull, and I want to use the shutter for something else or use the pumpkin in a different area. So I only glued it down where the ribbon hits the back. And then I took a piece of twine and I tied it around where the stem is, made a knot, and pushed it through the shutter and tied it to the back brace. It's not hard to do. If you have this and you want to try it, you will get it. You tie around the stem of the pumpkin, tie a knot, and then take those two strings and pull them under and through the shutter, and then there's a brace in the back and you just tie a knot there, and you could glue it down if you wanted to, but it's pretty steady because it's not heavy at all. So I have a pumpkin wreath form from Dollar Tree, and the sign front came from Dollar Tree, and so did the twine and the floral foam that the bear is sitting on. The little bear that I have is the perfect choice for this, and I have to tell you, I was not initially going to use him. I had a squirrel figurine that was going to go in here with some acorns and some different flowers. However, I couldn't find him, and I ended up stumbling across my bear, who I got in a eBay mystery box like 2 years ago. And he just so happened to be wearing the perfect color sweater, and I absolutely love the little heart that's on his chest, and I already knew I was going to do sweater weather on the sign, so it worked out great. The shutter, like you guys saw, came from Target in their Bullseye Playground for $5, and putting this all together was a lot of fun, and even though it didn't come together like I thought it was, I even like this better than my initial idea. Okay, for each one of these, you're going to need 2 of the wire wreath forms. What we're going to do is we're going to set them up on there, and we are going to curve them in. We're going to start by the stem and pull each section over on going back and forth to make it into a semicircle. You want to be really careful where it connects to each one of the sections so you don't pull that wire off. If you do, we can fix it, but we just want to keep bending this pumpkin in until you make a semicircle. Once you do it on the top for a while, you want to grab the sides and pull it in, and then we're going to flip it over to the bottom and do the exact same thing. And once you have your semicircle on one of them where they look like it's almost round, you're going to take the second one and do the exact same thing to it. You're going to do this on all 4. Okay, now your 2 pieces will fit together to make our round pumpkin, but these sides here will be inside of the pumpkin if you leave it like it is. So we are going to cut them off and use them to help with the curve of the pumpkin. We're going to cut about 1.5 inches away from your actual wire section that comes first, and then we're going to curve that piece down when you cut on the top of the pumpkin. So the long piece that's left is going to get curved downward. Then on the opposite side, you're going to cut the bottom of the pumpkin. And sorry, my pumpkin got away from me there. But this one is going to go down towards the bottom of the pumpkin. And then we're going to cut on the opposite side of the pumpkin, the other wire, and we're going to make that one shape upwards towards the pumpkin. And you're going to do this on all 4 of your pumpkin forms. So one side is cut at the top and one side is cut at the bottom. I am using some wire cutters that came from Home Depot. They cost about $10, I think. Make sure you use strong enough wire cutters so you don't have to struggle as much as I did. But now you can see these pumpkins fit together, and we are going to take some cable ties. These came from Dollar Tree, and we are going to hook these pumpkins together to make them into one unit. You get about 100 in this pack, and you can use as many as you like to hook this pumpkin together. First, we're going to start off with the 2 sides where we cut the wires. Now you're going to have 2 of the down sides that are right next to each other, and we are going to hook those together. It would not normally have 2 there, so we're going to make them into one, and we're going to go on to the other side and do the exact same thing. Then we are going to take our cable ties, and like I say, you can use as many as you like. I use a ton of them, and we are going to fasten the tops together. We're going to use that extra wire piece that we pulled up to bend around the top, and it does not have to be perfect because you are going to cover it up. And we're going to put a ton of cable ties, or zip ties, some people call them, around the top of it and the bottom to form this pumpkin into a circle. I hope everyone is following me on this. I'm showing you this from an aerial up view so you can see the extra loops that we had to create by cutting those sides, so you can make your pumpkin into a perfect circle. This gives it a little bit more stability as well. Once you have all of your zip ties or cable ties hooked onto your piece, we're going to just go ahead and cut off the tails of all of those. And I still have my tags on here too, so I'm going to cut those off and we'll move on to our next step. So here is what that finished product is going to look like. Cut off all of the tails on your cable ties, and we're on to our next step. Now I am grabbing some Dollar Tree white nautical rope. I have the size that comes in 11.1 feet long. You can use any size you want. You can use cord if you can't find this. You can use regular nautical rope as well. What you need to do with the Dollar Tree white nautical rope is take it apart. It has 3 sections to make it into rope. We're going to take all 3 of those apart on some regular rope. I'm showing you here on a leftover piece that I had, and we're going to keep all of those sections separate. I ended up using 5 pieces of nautical rope, of the actual rope, taken apart in 3 sections. Here I have one of the 11.1 sections that I had already taken apart. What we're going to do is we're going to macrame all around this pumpkin. We're going to start with one of the sections that I have 2 of the wires together, and you are going to take your rope and find the middle of that section, and then you're going to place one piece inside the pumpkin behind that section and the other piece in front of the pumpkin. So one piece goes on the inside and the other piece will be on the outside, and you're going to take it to the middle of that nautical rope. So once you find the middle, we're going to start our macrame pattern. And that pattern is very simple. If you already know how to do a simple knot stitch on macrame, this will be quite easy. If not, we'll go over it a couple of times so you get it. You're going to make sure the middle is there, cross the piece over that's in your left hand on top of your wire, take the right side piece and put it over the left hand rope piece. So it makes like this 4 here, as you guys can see, upside down 4. Then you're going to take that right piece and put it underneath the wire and bring it up through the loop on the left side to make your knot. And then pull it tight. And that is the stitch that we're going to do completely all over this pumpkin on every single piece of exposed wire. You're going to take your left piece, put it across the top of the wire, put your right piece on top of the left piece, then take the right piece and push it underneath your wire and stick it through the loop that's on the left side. Pull it through and make your knot. That's how easy it is. I'm going to speed it up a little and show it to you again and again in case you get a little lost. You can slow down this video in YouTube if you need to, but that's the basic pattern and we're going to do that completely all over the pumpkin. So the left piece goes over the wire, the right piece goes over the left piece, then the right piece goes under the wire, and then it goes back under the loop and through facing you, and you're going to pull a knot. So we're going to do that all over the pumpkin. And here it is in a straight on view, just in case you were unable to see it upside down. The left piece goes over the wire, the right piece goes over the left piece. Then you tuck it around behind the wire and pull the loop through. Now what this is going to do after a while is it is going to start twisting on you. Doing the same exact stitch all the way down, it will twist around the wire. And when you feel like you can't do it facing you, just twist it on its own. Just grab the rope that's already on there, the pattern, and twist it around like this. And then you can reach the other side to do the same pattern. And you're going to continue that until your entire pumpkin is covered. Okay, now right here you can see that this wire broke loose while I was playing with my pumpkin. So I'm going to show you that you do the exact same thing. You find the center of your rope. You're going to start your first knot while that is still disconnected. And you're going to push it up towards the bar. And when you get it up to the bar, where you're going to tie it tightly, then we're going to put some hot glue on the rope, on the piece that's loose, and on the bar. And then you will pull your rope tightly and it will adhere because the glue will catch not only the rope and the bar, but the top piece. And then that just works perfectly well. If you have problems with it and it's still coming loose, get your rope onto the bar and then glue that piece into the rope, because you're going to cover that up with decorations anyway. And then just continue your pattern. So here's the pumpkin completely covered, but I left this section clear so I can show you how I covered the bottom and how I covered the other sides of the top. It's exactly the same as doing the sides that you did all the way down. I just tipped my pumpkin up like this, however, and I started with my rope around the stem and around the wires that we need to cover. So I found my middle as usual, and then I put it through where the stem is, and then I am going to put it around the side piece and around the bottom that I need to cover. You'll see how I do it. So it goes around where the stem is and around the side piece, and then I just start my pattern so I can do those middle bars that aren't done. Sorry, the middle bars that aren't done. And then I just continue until I get to the end. Now you don't have to worry that you're going to cross over a bar that already has some rope on it. Just keep going. It's easy. You'll just skip that part when you get to it. And then when you get to the very end, we're just going to make a knot and glue it down and cut your rope. Because like I said, we're going to be covering it up. You won't see it anyway. So here we are at the end, and all we're going to do is take these two pieces and make a simple knot, pull it nice and tightly, and then I'm going to take the one in the front and pull it over to the back, and we're going to use some hot glue and then glue those together in the back. And then we're going to cut them off, and your pumpkin is all covered with the rope.
This pick
then
here
I
from
have
Hobby
these
Lobby.
beautiful
I actually
picks that
bought
came
two
from
of them.
Hobby Lobby.
They
I'm
were
going to be taking the
$4.99 regular
leaves,
price,
this brown
but they were
one and the green
40%
one
off,
on
so
the bottom
I ended
off
up
of
getting
these
them
because I want to
each
use them for the other project. But I love the coloring of these with this, so we're going to use those along with some Dollar Tree leaves. These have some little berries on it, and one has a pumpkin on it, and I have another one with a gourd. And so we're going to use those to decorate as well. I also have these beautiful kind of burgundy-ish red. Some of them are a little bit velvety. They have some green tips on them. Leaves that came from Joanns fabrics. They are from their Bloom collection, and they are 40% off right now. We're going to use a few of these. Okay, now comes the fun part, is decorating. I already took off the leaves that I was going to use on my other pumpkin, and so now we're just going to use our hot glue guns and place on some of these picks and some of the decorations. Now the stems on these are a little bit long, so I am cutting them off. I could just cover them up, but I didn't want to play with it with my wire cutters, and I'm going to put one of these picks on either side of my pumpkin. And then after that, I'm just flying by the seat of my pants and putting the decorations on the way that I like. And I'm gluing directly to the macrame rope. It's just easier that way than to try to glue any of it to like the stem or anything. I'm going to keep this like it is, but I'm pretty sure if you want to change your mind on something, you will be able to take it apart. So let's get decorating. Next, I have this hurricane vase from Dollar Tree. It is the taller of the two vases. It goes almost completely to the top of the pumpkin. There's a shorter one that's about that size. We are going to cover this with some beautiful craft paper that I got from Hobby Lobby quite a while back, and it matches our color scheme. So all we're going to do is glue it around this face. I do have to cut it down slightly because it will be taller than the vase and taller than the pumpkin, but that's all we're going to do to it. And then we're going to put a light from Dollar Tree inside. And here is how this first pumpkin's final project turned out. I absolutely love what it looks like. I love the coloring of it. I think the craft paper that I put around the hurricane vase looks perfect with this. And I have it on my marble pedestal here in my living room, but I'm probably going to put this one in my kitchen. If you can see, I put an LED light from Dollar Tree in there that changes colors. And so inside of that pumpkin, the light is changing and it is kind of a greenish right now. And then it goes to more of a reddish background. And then there's a lavender and a white. I am going to try to film some of this so you guys can see it at night. The hardest part of this whole pumpkin is actually putting the form together. This is the same way we're going to put our second form together, but I love this. I think the picks and the colors that I used for it turned out perfectly, and I put a few Dollar Tree leaves in the bottom to go along with it, but you could decorate yours any kind of way that you like. Let's move on to pumpkin number 2. Okay, so we're going to start with our wreath form and take off the stems on this one. I'm not going to use those. And you can see already I cut the bottoms and the top, and we have the long extra piece that goes around that you would use to wrap around the bottoms and the top of this form. We're not going to keep that. We're going to cut it off so that you have 1.5 inches to 2 inches on the bottom. Now I lost the footage of that, but we are going to cut that off. We do not need to keep that piece. What I'm showing you here is that I'm putting wood beads out, and we are going to string wood beads on all of the sides of the pumpkins. But the bottom and the top, we only need 1.5 inches on both sides of the pumpkin. That's it. After that, we're going to put those sides together, and we are not going to put the 2 wires that meet up on each side next to each other. You'll have enough wire at the top of each one's and the bottom that you can just crisscross it over slightly and then wrap some floral wire around it, and we're going to attach it. But first, let me show you how I put the beads on. As you can see, beads are taking off on me and my pumpkin wreath form tipped over. Okay, I already cut the wire as you saw, and I'm going to be stringing my beads on to this pumpkin. I have 3 different sizes, and so I'm going to be doing them in a pattern. All of my beads came from Amazon. That is the cheapest I found to do them. I have 12 millimeter for the smallest, 20 millimeter the next size up, and 1 inch ones. And I don't know how many millimeters that is. I would guess it would be about 30 probably. I have a ton of beads in my possession, and I buy them 300 to a pack at around $11 to $12.99. And so you can do any pattern you want, or you can do all the same size beads. I'm using approximately 300 beads altogether because they are different sizes. If you did all of the bigger ones, like the 1 inch ones, you probably only use about 170 to, I don't know, 180 beads. But these are Dollar Tree pumpkins, like I said before. They're all different. I just buy as many as you think, plus 10% more, so you won't run out if you care to do this. Once we get them all on, I'm going to show you how I connect these wires back together, because it's a little different from how I connected my beaded pumpkin from last year back together. So here I'm cutting some floral wire. It came from Joanns fabric store. I'm doing about 1 inch, maybe 1.5 inches, and I'm just going to cut that off. Could have used my wire cutters. And I'm going to put some hot glue on the floral wire because I'm using my big gun. If I was using my small one, I'd probably put it in the beads. And then I'm going to slide that into the beads and push it down. That is going to give that bead on that wire a little more stabilization. Then what I'm going to do is put the beads on the top wire of the pumpkin after I get this one on, and use that piece of floor wire to slide in to those beads. That way they will stay and it will all have an extra thing to hold it together. So I'm going to put some glue on here, put on another bead, and then put the other bead onto the top piece of wire with some glue, and then stick them all together. And that's how I make all of my beads stick. So here is my pumpkin all beaded all the way around, and on the top and the bottom you can see the exposed wire. Now what I did is I cut off all the excess wire between the pieces and I glued them by wrapping them with some floral wire. I used silver this time for some reason because I had a little break in between doing it. But you could use the gold, you can use green, you can use floral wire from anywhere. Dollar Tree sells it as well. I just have these packs that came from Joanns Fabrics. They're a little bit thicker. We're going to wrap the wire around where they overlap and then cut off the excess of the green pumpkin frame wire. And keep that because you're going to need it. Then I'm hot gluing all the pieces on top of the floral wire that holds it together. I'm going to let that dry completely and turn it upside down and do the same to the bottom. And then let that dry completely and turn it back over so both sides of these wires have glue on them so it won't come apart, if you understand that. Now that we have our full beaded pumpkin, let's decorate it. Okay, for this pumpkin, I picked up some more floral picks. These are from Hobby Lobby as well. They were $4.99, 40% off. I actually love the coloring of these with this pumpkin. As you're going to see, this one's going to be a little more of neutral colors, not the traditional fall colors. I just think it goes really well with the unfinished beads. So we are going to cut off the stems on these just like we did the other ones, and then I'm going to glue these picks directly onto the beads and onto the wires. And as you can see sitting there, I have the leaves that I took off the other picks, and we're going to be adding them to this project as well. Okay, so you guys know I'm extra, and this extra thing in this project are these. These are corn husks. They are used to make tamales in the grocery store. That's where I picked up this bag. I think they were $3, and you get a ton in the bag. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adhering them onto the pumpkin like this. They are kind of wide and they are pointy on one end. So you want the pointy end facing down on the pumpkin. These are a little long. I'm going to actually cut them off at the straight side and then bend them over and do them on the pumpkin. Also, they are kind of damp and they're really easy and bendable. They dry really, really fast. So you want to only take a small amount out of the bag at a time and kind of have the bag kind of sealed, because once they dry, they get kind of brittle. And I'm not sure that you can wet them down or get them to reshape if they're brittle. Plus, you can tear them in half or cut them in half if you need smaller pieces. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to have the pointy edge facing down. I'm going to cut off some of that top and bend it over because it is a little bit too long for me. But we're going to put these all the way around of it. Okay, now we have the entire thing covered. I have husk between all of the edges, but that is going to be the bottom. As you can see, I turned it over, and I want that to look like there's like a little nest in the bottom of this. And now we're going to move on to decorating the top. Okay, now I am gluing these picks directly onto the beads and the frame, along with the extra leaves that I took off my other picks because they go really well with this pumpkin. I'm going to do this to the same on both sides, just like I did the other one. And I also have some berries on a stem that I had in my stash already, some brown leaves that I got 2 picks of from Hobby Lobby. They were $1.99 regular price, 40% off as well. And I also have a few little picks and things that I got from Joanns fabrics, and I may lose some of those. These little white things, I don't know what they're called. They just said floral on them, and there's bunches of them on here. I think there's 3 on each thing. I'm going to tuck them in to hide some of the spaces where you can still see the floral wire, like the pumpkin wire on there, just to give it a little more fullness. And then we will be done. Okay, so I was looking at this and I thought it's definitely missing something. So I picked up this ribbon from Hobby Lobby a while ago. It is not in the fall stuff. It's not in the Christmas stuff. It's over where they have the ribbon that's near most of their like greenery floral, the stuff that they have all the time. And it was $8.99, as you guys could see. I used a 40% off coupon to get it. I never buy anything regular price. Unless of course it's something you really want, I suggest you wait. There's always a sale or there's always a coupon. So I am going to be making this into just a regular like loopy bow. I'm not even going to have 2 tails on it, and I'm going to tie it in the middle with a piece of corn husk just because I started this and I didn't even think it through to pull out twine or to get some more floral wire out. I already put it away. So I'm just going to tie it in the middle with a little bit of corn husk that I had left over. And then I'm going to glue it to the top of the pumpkin. And I'm pushing it together just a little. And it's just something extra that I want to put on there. Because we know I'm extra. And today I think I'm extra. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to put a couple of loops on the top. And then I'll put some loops in a couple other places. And you'll see what it looks like. Oh, and here's those berries I was talking about. I decided to cut some off of the stem and stick them in a few places. Can you put too many things on a pumpkin? Probably, but who knows? We're going to do it anyway. I'm just going to put whatever I find or have near me on here, and we'll see how it turns out in the end. You guys can let me know. Okay, lastly, I'm decided I'm going to put a stem on it, like a pumpkin stem on this. I know I wasn't going to put a stem on it, but I didn't put a stem on the other one. And I know some people are going to say, why didn't you put a stem on it? You can't even tell it's a pumpkin. So I have that piece of wire that I had left over from taking all the berries off of it. You can use any piece of wire. You can use one of the pieces of wire that you had left over from cutting off the sides on this pumpkin. You're actually going to want to grab a couple of those in a second. So I have some nautical rope that I'm going to be using here, and it's just leftover nautical rope. I have lots of leftover pieces from projects, so I'm going to wrap it around this and hot glue it down, and I'm going to do it until I build it up so it actually looks like a nice fat stem. Okay, so now we have our stem. It kind of looks like a horn made, and I'm going to take a little bit of this mesh kind of, I don't know, chicken wire or moss covered ribbon, and I'm going to put my stem on it, and I'm going to hot glue it down to it. Mine has some little extra pieces sticking out, so I just stuck them in it. I'm going to hot glue it from underneath it down to that, and I'm going to take two of the metal bars that we cut off of the pumpkin frame and attach them to the bottom with hot glue. And then I'm just going to set it inside my pumpkin, and it will rest there because the sides will touch. And here is this final project, and I'm so in love with it. You can see I have a little owl figurine who is a candle holder. You could put a tea light in there. And I got him from Home Goods years ago, so I don't even think he's available. But I think he looks perfect in there with it looking like a little nest. I love the coloring of him, and he matches the beads on this pumpkin. Now the pumpkin is a little bigger than the other one because we did not double up any of the outside rungs on it. So you have initially like 2 more rungs, so it is a little bit wider. The plate that is sitting on is like 24 inches wide, so this is a pretty big piece. I have that little turkey sitting next to him. I was thinking about putting him in there, but he didn't make it because his coloring wasn't as nice. But I love this. Yeah, there he is, my little turkey. I love all the things about this. I love putting a pumpkin on top of a pumpkin. So you could fill this with pumpkins instead of using the little owl. I think the stem turned out nice, though. I don't love the coloring of it. So I think I'm going to cover it with burlap or something later on. But I didn't really have time to pull anything else out to do it. I also am not a big fan of the kind of grayish white berries that are on it, so I might take those off and replace them with something else. These right here, they're not like the greatest, but I could use them for a different project. All in all, I still love it, and you guys gotta let me know which one of these you like the best. I'm torn. I think I like both of them, and I can't really pick. But if you have a favorite, put that down in the comment section down below. Okay, and that is it for this compilation video. Go ahead and comment down below which one of the 6 DIYs that I made using Dollar Tree's pumpkin reform is your favorite. Do you have a favorite? Because I still have a favorite. My number one is the Thankful Ribbon beaded pumpkin that I did way back in 2019. I have to say that is absolutely my favorite, and I still display it in my house every single year since I made it. As a matter of fact, I still have all of these, and I display them all except for the one that I made for my mom. She has that one at her house, and so I cannot wait for fall to get here so I can put all of these back out around in places in my house. Also, I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and if you're not a subscriber here yet, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, hang out with us for a while, because we have a lot of fun here on Lacee Space. I have 2 videos that I just did of fall DIYs for your house that I will link in the description down below as well, so you can check those out. Make sure you hit that notification bell when you're subscribed too, so you know when I upload, because I will be bringing you more things for fall, including some wedding DIYs coming up next. So that is it, and I will catch you guys in my next video. Bye, loves.